Welcome back to Silent Stories Updates, where real people and unbelievable events come together in stories that will stay with you long after the screen fades to black. If you love stories about justice, courage, and standing up for what's right, then make sure you stick around till the very end, because today's story will shake you. It's about an HOA that sent fake police officers to arrest a man, but they didn't know he was the actual chief of police. It all started on a quiet Saturday morning in Lakewood Estates, a place that looked like it came straight out of a magazine. Perfect lawns, identical mailboxes, and a neighborhood so polished it almost felt artificial. But beneath that calm surface, something darker was brewing. My name is Daniel Harris, and for more than 2 decades, I served the people of Lakewood County as a police officer. I worked my way up through the ranks, facing the worst the world could offer: armed robberies, drug busts, even hostage situations. But nothing could have prepared me for what I faced right in my own front yard. When I retired from active duty a few years ago, I thought I'd finally found peace. I moved my family into a small but beautiful home in Lakewood Estates. The neighborhood was governed by a homeowners association, an HOA that, at first glance, seemed harmless enough. They maintained the park, sent newsletters, and organized little events. But within a year, I realized that the people running it weren't interested in community. They were obsessed with control. It began with little things: a warning letter for leaving my trash bin out a few minutes too long, a fine because my daughter's car, which had a small dent, was lowering the property value. Then, they sent a citation saying my lawn wasn't uniform in shade. I laughed at first. Surely, they had better things to do. But soon, the letters turned into harassment. I'd find anonymous complaints filed against me every other week. My wife, Anna, started getting anxious. She'd see the HOA president, a man named George Redding, circling the block, snapping pictures of our house. "Danny," she said one evening, "this isn't normal. He's obsessed with us." Then came the last straw: a citation demanding I take down the small flagpole in my yard. The same pole I'd had for years, flying the American flag and a thin blue line banner beneath it. They claimed it violated the visual harmony of the neighborhood. I appealed. They denied me. I attended the next HOA meeting to explain that I had every legal right to display that flag. And halfway through my statement, they cut my microphone. That's when I knew this wasn't about rules. It was about power. Weeks later, it escalated in a way that no one could have predicted. It was a Sunday morning. My wife was cooking breakfast. My daughter was upstairs finishing a school project. I was sipping my coffee by the window when a black SUV stopped in front of my driveway. 2 men stepped out, both in tactical vests, both wearing what looked like police gear. They walked with purpose, too much purpose. I knew that stride. It was the walk of someone pretending to be in charge. The taller one knocked hard on the door. "Daniel Harris?" he said firmly. "You're under arrest for multiple property violations and harassment of HOA officials." My wife froze. "Arrest? What are they talking about?" I looked at their badges, shiny, but wrong. The lettering was off. The emblem wasn't ours. And their patches said Neighborhood Compliance Task Force. I'd been in law enforcement long enough to know there's no such thing. I took a deep breath. "Gentlemen," I said calmly, "you're making a serious mistake. Who authorized this arrest?" "The HOA," one of them answered. "You've repeatedly violated community rules and refused to comply. We're taking you in." That was it. The moment they said authorized by the HOA, I knew what I was dealing with: impersonators. I stared them down and said, "You're impersonating law enforcement officers. That's a felony." The taller man stepped closer. "Sir, don't make this harder than it has to be." I didn't flinch. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "I'm Chief Harris, Lakewood County Police Department." The second man's face went pale. The first stuttered, trying to come up with something. I slowly reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and called dispatch. "This is Chief Harris. I've got 2 individuals posing as officers at my residence. Send units immediately." Before they could even react, I heard the faint sirens in the distance. Backup was already on its way. The fake officers tried to back away, muttering about a misunderstanding, but it was too late. 3 squad cars arrived within minutes, surrounding the SUV. My officers jumped out, guns drawn, ordering them to the ground. The whole neighborhood came outside to watch as the men who'd come to arrest me were handcuffed in front of my lawn. My wife stood beside me, trembling. Danny, who would do something like this? I had my suspicions. And a few hours later, I got confirmation. The fake officers confessed during questioning that they'd been hired by none other than HOA President George Redding. He told them I was a dangerous, defiant homeowner and that I needed to be taught a lesson. He'd even handed them fake arrest warrants and fake badges he'd ordered online. He paid them in cash. The audacity left me speechless. I'd seen corruption in big institutions, but never something this personal, this close to home. I filed charges, impersonation of law enforcement, conspiracy, unlawful detainment, and harassment. The HOA board tried to distance themselves, claiming George acted independently. But emails proved otherwise. Several members had approved the plan to intimidate me. They thought that by sending men dressed as cops, they could scare me into submission. They underestimated who they were dealing with. The local news picked up the story. HOA sends fake officers to arrest resident. Turns out he's the police chief. The headline went viral overnight. The entire community was humiliated. Within days, the entire HOA board resigned. George Redding was arrested and charged. But victory didn't come without cost. For weeks afterward, my family couldn't relax. Every time we heard a car outside, my wife would check the window. My daughter had nightmares about men knocking on the door. The sense of safety we once had in our own home was gone. I remember sitting in our backyard one evening, watching the flag ripple gently in the wind. My neighbor, Mrs. Landry, a sweet elderly woman, walked over with a plate of cookies. "Chief Harris," she said softly, "I'm sorry for what they did. We were all too scared to speak up, but you stood your ground. You reminded us what courage really looks like." Her words brought tears to my eyes. For the first time since the ordeal began, I felt a weight lift off my chest. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at a community meeting. This time, it wasn't run by the HOA, it was organized by the residents. The room was packed. People who once avoided eye contact now looked at me with gratitude. I told them the truth. Abuse of power doesn't always wear a badge or sit in an office, I said. Sometimes, it hides behind neighborhood rules and fines. But it's still abuse. And the only way to stop it is to stand up, together. The crowd erupted in applause. That night, the residents voted to dissolve the old HOA completely. In its place, we formed a voluntary neighborhood committee focused on helping each other, not punishing. No fines, no intimidation, no more fear. The neighborhood changed. Kids played freely again. People started talking, hosting barbecues, planting gardens. And for the first time in years, Lakewood Estates actually felt like a community. Months later, when a local reporter interviewed me for a follow-up story, she asked if I ever regretted standing up to them. I thought about my wife's sleepless nights, my daughter's fear, and the chaos it caused. But then I remembered Mrs. Landry's words, the neighborhood's unity, and the flag still waving proudly on my lawn. "No," I said quietly, "I don't regret it. Because when you let bullies win, whether they're in government, in business, or sitting on a neighborhood board, you give them permission to keep hurting others. And I couldn't live with that." What I learned from all of this was simple but powerful. Authority doesn't come from a title, a badge, or a piece of paper. It comes from integrity, from doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when you're standing alone. If there's one thing I'd want anyone watching this to remember, it's this: don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Even if the people against you seem powerful, their power means nothing if it's built on lies. Because truth, courage, and decency, those are the things that endure. That day, the HOA tried to break me, but instead, they broke themselves. They reminded everyone in Lakewood that intimidation only works when good people stay silent. And I refuse to be silent. So, to anyone out there dealing with their own version of a HOA, maybe it's a boss abusing authority, a neighbor overstepping boundaries, or someone trying to control you through fear, stand your ground. You have more power than you think. And when you do, You might just inspire others to do the same. Thank you for watching Silent Stories Updates. If this story moved you or gave you courage to face your own challenges, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. Until next time, remember, silence may protect peace, but speaking up protects justice.